One of the focuses of today's episode is security frameworks. If you've ever heard the terms NIST Cybersecurity Framework, Center for Internet Security Critical Security Controls, or CMMC, which is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, then you already have some idea what a security framework is. The purpose of these frameworks is to implement a set of safeguards for your data that sets the course for the decisions you make about cybersecurity. This is also called information security, or infosec. When it comes to both preventing and stopping cyber attacks, having a security framework in place is critical to your business. The problem is, most businesses today don't manage their data security to one of these frameworks and instead simply implement a bunch of cybersecurity controls and then hope they are protected. Unfortunately, this leaves these businesses woefully unprotected from data breaches. This is the second of a two-part episode where I speak with Greg Scasny, the CTO of Blueshift Cyber. Blueshift Cyber is a managed security operations center company, which basically means they sit and watch your network around the clock and monitor it for cyber attacks. Greg had so many incredibly important things to say about business cybersecurity that there simply was no way I could put it all into a single episode. If you're looking to take your business security to the next level, then this is the episode for you. This is the podcast for hard-working IT people who love technology, cybersecurity, and access to the coolest new tech tools. Welcome to Legends of IT.
Offshore, outside the country, there's a manufacturer. They manufacture they're a very large manufacturer. I just can't say what they do. They were all, we're not sure we need this, but we were curious, so we put it on, and within, I want to say, an hour, we found two compromised Tomcat servers, Apache Tomcat. So if you guys know, familiar with Apache Tomcat, but from a security perspective, Apache Tomcat's one of the worst things you could ever have. Not only were they compromised, they were flat out on the internet, right? So they were dual homed. So they had external, they were natted, but for all intents and purposes, they could be dual homed. They were compromised, and they were trying to use those to break in their network. They had no idea, and they were there. So when we told them about it, obviously the CEO was a little upset. The problem is their internal IT staff was making excuses, but the CEO was a very smart individual, and he asked, well, okay, how long have these been there? And then we heard silence, and then he was very persistent. And how long have these been out there? They were out there for almost a little over a year and 3 months. They had put them out there for testing and just forgot about them. And so, you see things like that all the time where it's like, you know what, back to even going right back to your initial point. If you understand what's in your environment, and you're looking at that kind of stuff, those things don't happen. You need to have that. You need to have the ability to know when those things are there, so that way you can get rid of them very, very quickly, or at least put some kind of compensating controls around it, or do something. But you have to have the visibility in your environment to know that kind of stuff's there. We see that. It's all the time. We see stuff like that.
In case you didn't see part one of this episode, Greg and his team at Blueshift Cyber have an advanced security information and event monitoring platform, or SIM, with a 24/7 team of security professionals who monitor it. The entire purpose of the product is to detect, correlate, and report on anomalous network behavior. So when they have their product deployed to this company, they quickly discover these compromised servers. And this company, they don't believe they need a product like this. But the real issue is, there are no security controls, in other words, the framework, in place to be sure something like this doesn't happen. To help you better understand this concept, let's relate it to a fishing boat. A fishing boat leaves port early in the morning and sets out to sea, often going many miles offshore, where there is no land in sight. Before the fishing boat captain and his crew can set out to sea, they need to have a checklist. Do they have enough fuel? Do they have life jackets in case the boat sinks? Do they have flares to signal for help? Does the radio work? The list goes on and on. Missing one of these things could mean a matter of life versus death. And the risks of setting out to sea without these things in place would be tremendous. They simply just wouldn't do it. Well, it's no different when it comes to your business security. The security framework is that checklist, and without it, the security risk to the life of your business is tremendous. And it begs the question, why would any business today be without that checklist? I know through all of the different businesses that I interact with today that almost none of them are actively using a security framework to manage their infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So the one that we use is CIS. I love CIS. I love it because it has process maturity. Whereas something like NIST CSF does not. And I think process maturity is incredibly important to improving that over time. And I know that the Blueshift offers an extensive SIM, SOAR, and logging solution to be able to correlate events that are going on different devices across a network that's big or small. So when we talk about compensating controls, like how is having a tool like Blueshift able to solve problems like the CIS subcontrol 8.5 or 800.171.331? Like how does it go about doing that?
For us, what it comes down to is we're not IT guys, right? So we don't do that IT work. But when we see something that is egregious, and egregiousness could be anything like those, maybe those Tomcat servers were production servers. They needed them for some reason, right? So they're going to come back and say, I have to have those. So we're going to say, okay, if you have to have those, what can we do to help compensate for the fact that they're, one, flat on the internet, and two, they're flat on your internal network? Can we put rules around those things? Can we move them to a different physical network and just allow specific ports there? And can we limit its ingress and egress out of your internal network? Find the workarounds that if you have to have those things, what can we do to lower the risk to those items? And that's, in all honesty, I'll talk about what the causes of data breaches, and that's actually one of them. Is that people not doing that, not putting compensating controls around things that are risky that they have to have. Because there are things that you're just not going to want to change. But if you can put more monitoring around those, you can put more, again, I would say, put our sensor on there, use our threat intelligence, use those sorts of things that we do well, to help lower the risk to that device. And let's monitor the heck out of that thing so we make sure if that thing even blips a little bit from a machine learning perspective, its behavior changes a little bit, we can investigate to make sure it's there, make sure it's patched, all those sorts of things. But help put things in place around something that you have to have, so that way you can make it more secure if you can't get rid of it, right? And that there's things that happen. There's things that are just insecure. One of the big things I do is I teach a ICS, Industrial Control System and Operational Technology Security. I teach it for NASA. And it's all about those compensating controls, because environments like that have systems that are just by design insecure. It's just because they have to be. So when you start thinking of different than business IT, when you talk about something that's operating a water plant or an electrical facility or a steel producing facility, that data moves extremely fast. After a millisecond, it's not good anymore. So you can't put the traditional security encryption and things around that kind of stuff. It just has to flow, and it has to flow really, really fast. So you have to get used to putting in compensating controls and segmenting and doing those sorts of things you should do anyways, to be able to properly defend those environments. So compensating controls, good stuff, but you got to be willing to do it. You said something earlier that I think is really important. And I'm sorry I didn't mention it, but you talked about frameworks. I think everybody should pick a framework. Like I said, you pick CIS, great framework. I like the CSF. I know it doesn't have maturity in it, but it's a good place to start, right? Picking some framework to go around. I mean, you can always change, but picking one is better than just shooting from the hip, right? So you already have these great frameworks. Again, CIS, CSF, NIST 800.171, probably a little bit tough, or 853, which you're not going to ever do. No one's ever done it, right? So everybody's like, oh, you're not. I don't know anybody who's 853 compliant, really. But picking a framework that you can work within, again, so I would always tell people start with the CSF because it's easy, and then you can mature to the CIS and do those sort of things. You got to pick one. It's so important, and you should be, as from an MSP perspective, in my opinion, consulting your customers to tell them they need to do that too. Or else, how do you compare yourself to any kind of baseline? If you don't pick a framework and have something to work from. So I think that's something I've been preaching my whole entire security career. You hit it right in the head. I wish I'd have said it sooner, but you are so on the money that yes, you have to pick a framework. You need to try to be compliant with that framework, and you need to test against that framework, right? So I can't tell you how many times when I did the offensive stuff prior to Blueshift, I had someone come to me and say, hey, I want a penetration test. I said, great, what security controls are we testing against? And they go, what? I just want you to hack in my stuff. I'm like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works, right? So it's very important, and I think people should take that advice from you.
If you're in charge of technology for your company, it can feel like a lonely life. Dealing with the day-to-day struggles of managing an IT infrastructure while trying to balance all of those things you need to do, like implementing proper security controls. For most IT managers, this can feel like an impossible situation to be in. To make matters worse, how do you communicate these concerns to the CEO? Greg has some excellent advice to share with IT managers who are experiencing the overwhelm and are struggling with these types of issues. IT directors, IT managers, IT people working in the enterprise and the small business, they've got overwhelming jobs because, like people that work in MSPs, the same is expected of them. What can these hardworking men and women that are out there managing these corporate infrastructures really do? Because they're dealing with the same things. They're dealing with service tickets. They're dealing with all the projects they're given. Sometimes it's other work that they're given that is outside of the realm of IT. And they're also expected to kind of keep everything secure. And so many of them will go out and hire a security vendor, but they feel, in my experience, they feel a little lost and incredibly overwhelmed when it comes to a lot of these things. What advice would you give these people that are stuck in this position?
Yeah, I would tell them to absolutely hire a security vendor. That's selfish from my standpoint, but you have to find one that's willing to work with you, right? And work with your environment. And I know a lot of security people. And one thing about the infosec community, for the most part, is the infosec community is a really giving community. The people who do this, the guys who are happy to teach us. There's guys that I looked up to and mentored me when I was doing things, and still this day I still read a lot of stuff. They're a very giving community, so you need to find those avenues. Now the problem is going to be that you only have so many hours in the day, right? And so you really have to find the right partners. That's the best way that you're going to combat that, because you can't know everything. And you can't expect to go to your CEO and tell him you know everything. So you have to be honest with your executives, and sometimes that's hard, but you need to be honest with them about where your skills gaps are and why that's a risk to the business. I mean, C-level people understand risk, right? So they understand things in terms of risk. So if you can put those things in that risk term when you go to meet with them, or your boss, or the case may be the owner, they will understand when you put it in terms of risk. And then maybe you can get a little bit of budget to hire, an organization to help you along the way. Because it's two different fields. It's two different terminologies. Like, I'll sit there and talk to an IT guy and I start whipping out things and they're like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. But he'll say things too from an IT perspective. I'm like, I don't know what the hell that is. It doesn't play in my world, right? So you have to find those specialists, and that's not going to get any better over time, right? There's never going to be this convergence all of a sudden. I mean, it was like that. I don't want to date you. I think I'm way older than you are. But when I first started, back in the, DEC VAX VMS days, we didn't, it was all one thing, right? It was all security. Oh yeah. And IT and programming were all one ththing. And now, we've divested into all kinds of and very, deep and broad disciplines, right? You have cloud, you have, it just goes on and on and on. It's never ending. And there's no way you can know all of that. So you have to know where your expertise is not, and then partner where you can, where it makes sense.
Working together with an outside technology and security partner should create a cohesive team, and that team will be tasked with helping CEOs and owners own their own risk. This is incredibly important because most CEOs don't spend a significant portion of their daily activities managing technology risk. When you don't know what you don't know, you open yourself up to unnecessary risk. It's the job of the IT manager and technology and security partner to help CEOs and owners understand this. But while it's important for IT managers to understand how to speak with their CEOs and owners, it's equally as important that CEOs and owners take responsibility for their own business's technology and security.
I do a lot of speaking engagements and for business leaders and things like that. And I'm always given the scare the shit out of them speech. And I hate it. It's not what I like to do, but they don't listen otherwise, right? So if you want to give them all these pretty graphs and stuff about all this fun stuff and how we can reduce this, but they don't care. You tell them how someone had to pay out, $5.5 million, to pay a ransom or else their business was going under, how much news they get, how much press they get because of that. And it's not good press. The brand damage, all the things, all the how many businesses go out of business after a successful breach. Now they're starting to go, okay, I want to listen a little bit. And then you start bringing in examples or even guests of people who have been breached in the past. I'll tell you what, who's going to open their wallet the first? The person who's been breached, right? I already went through it. I'll spend. I know I got to do it. But it takes that level of kind of that level set conversation of listen, this is real West. Now the news is helping us with that, right? 5 years ago, this was this was much, much harder.
Yeah.
Because people are like, I don't know if I want to spend that. Do I really need it? Are they going to target me? I'm just a small mom and pop. Well, yeah, they're going to target you. They're absolutely. Now the news is at least kind of helping us in that perspective, where everybody knows cyber. Everybody's heard the stories. So now it's just, okay, how much risk is tolerable for you? Is it tolerable for you to lose all your data? Or is it not? Everybody thinks that I have a good story. I have a VC story. That when it comes to like that, understanding how data would affect you. So I was at a VC meeting, talking about the company I was prior to that. We spun Blueshift out of a company called Cygen. I was at this large VC in California, Sand Hill Road, the whole 9 yards. And I was explaining what we do with Cygen software and how we protect files and stuff like that. And he says, well, why would I ever need that? I don't keep anything on my laptop that I really need. I said, it's all in the cloud. I said, okay, that's fine. So you don't know me from Adam, but I have my resume here. So why don't you go to the bathroom? I'm going to give you my resume so you can see what I've done in the past. And you just leave your laptop here with me. And when you come back, tell me if you're worried. And so he looks at my resume. He goes, I don't want to do that. I said, well, why not? Well, because you're going to get into my laptop, but you don't have anything on here. Oh, well, that's not really true. I do have some things on here. So, everybody thinks that, I don't really have anything that anybody else wants, but you do. Everybody does. So, yeah, I'll digress from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to me that until it happens to you, it's like, I always like to equate it to healthcare. And I work in healthcare, so I think it's a really interesting parallel that we go to the doctor every year because we want to get our blood checked. And we go to the dentist because we want to get our teeth cleaned. And we do all of this preventative maintenance to keep our health where we want it to be. We try to get enough sleep at night. We try to eat the right foods. Are we always perfect? No. But then we find this concept incredibly foreign when it comes to our technology and our business. It seems like, why would I spend money on that? Everything seems to be okay. And I think what you said about if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But I think what you said about the news is what is helping to change people's minds. When you hear about your best friend's friend who's dying of cancer at the age of 50, and you go, God, that's horrific. I don't want that to be myself or my friends or my family. That's just horrific. It is not the same, but in some ways it is when you hear what's happening to these businesses, because these businesses employ these families, and these families depend upon these businesses to put food on the table. And I think that people that sit in that C-level position need to understand that they have a responsibility, that they have an immense responsibility to make good decisions when it comes to the health of their technology and their cybersecurity.
Agreed 100%. I mean, that's part of, I do a lot of like news, like local news and stuff like that when I can, because I think it's important to get the message out. I do a lot of speaking engagements too it's all over the country, but I always try to make it local, right? So if you can find examples of things that have happened within it, just like you said, you hit it so great right there. It's again, if it happens to someone right? So, oh crap, now I need to start looking at what I'm doing. If you can put it in those terms of even some things that have happened that they have heard of, or at least they're close to, it tends to hit home more. They tend to listen a little bit better. But everybody needs to listen, because it will happen to you. It's not, if you don't take preventative measures, it's not a question of if it's going to happen to your company. It will happen, right? So how prepared are you to deal with that? Is it going to be a bad day, or is it just going to be a minor inconvenience? And that's all dependent on, again, it's not just spend, but the choosing of right vendors and right technology and that kind of stuff. But you really want to make sure that if it happens, it's just a minor inconvenience. Let's not get to the bad day piece. And that's doable. I think that's an achievable goal, no matter what size business you're in. It doesn't have that type of technology. The technology's out there, and it's not just reserved for Fortune 500 or Fortune 50 companies anymore. There's enough good technology out there that put together in the right way, which is again what I feel we do, that you can make it affordable to small, medium-sized businesses, mid-sized enterprises. It doesn't have to be a super drain on the budget, and you can get a lot of bang for that buck. But you got to go look for them.
Last year in 2021, 61% of all cyber attacks were against small businesses. These attacks are going to happen to every single small business out there. The question you need to ask yourself is, do you want to experience a very bad day or just a minor inconvenience? I want to thank my guest today, Greg Scasny, CTO of Blueshift Cyber. Also, a great big thank you to our listeners and viewers for tuning into our show today. We sincerely appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Legends of IT wherever you consume podcasts. This way, you'll be notified as new episodes become available. Until next time, on Legends of IT.